So today it's a double feature. There's actually a whole bunch of movies opening in Atlanta this weekend that I wanted to see, and I mean, she get two of them in, so it's better than nothing. So the first one was another documentary. This one's about Gilda Radner called Love, Gilda, and it's directed by Lisa Diapolito. And I actually didn't know much about Gilda Radner's life. I've seen some of her more famous sketches, but obviously the mid 70s was 10 years before I was born, so I didn't see her in her height. And I knew that she died of cancer, and I knew that she was married to Gene Wilder at the end of her life. That's literally all I knew about her. I didn't know anything else. This documentary, while it's not like a boundary pushing in terms of its structure, is a very informative documentary that really lets you know a lot about her from her childhood all the way through her death, and even the ramifications of her, the way in which she faced cancer and tried to make the world a better place because of going through cancer. And so I think it's just a great documentary for specifically people of my generation who don't know much about her, and learning so much of what she faced and what she did and how wonderful she was a really great way to augment what I already love about her, which is her sketches. I also think, and I base this on the two women who were sitting behind me in the movie theater who lost their shit continually whenever they showed old SNL sketches, that those who were alive and fans of hers will really enjoy this trip down memory lane of the great characters she created on SNL, and the way in which she really was the beating heart of that show in its initial run. So I just, it was, there's a lot of these documentaries coming out right now that are very sort of by the book, like, look at this interesting person. But some of them feel more like they're in service of the character of the person, especially the ones about people who are still alive, than is necessary. And this one really felt like almost a love letter to Gilda, even though it says Love, Gilda. And seeing some of the talking heads that did show both SNL cast members who were inspired by her, so people like Bill Hader and Melissa McCarthy, and well, she's not a cast member, but you know what I mean, and Amy Poehler, having them talk, and Maya Rudolph, really great. But then there were a handful of people who were creating with her that they managed to interview, including Lorne Michaels, obviously, who created SNL, as well as Chevy Chase, who was on that first season. I was surprised they got him. And a really sort of revealing interview with Martin Short, who actually was in the original Toronto cast of Godspell with her, and they kind of dated a little bit, and I was like, wow, this is a lot. But I think watching documentaries in particular about women of this generation, I find very fascinating, because they were at a crossroads between an old way of how girls were raised and a new world that women were carving for themselves and the rights they were getting. As we well know, mid 70s is when women, started to get rights like, I don't know, having bank accounts when they were married and things like that. And so Gilda is one of these women who really was boundary pushing and was trailblazing, even though she didn't necessarily always know that that's what she was doing. She just sort of did. But she also had a lot of antagonisms in her life because she was raised in this previous generation. And I find that just fascinating and heartbreaking all at the same time. But I'm grateful that she did what she did as a person, and that she shared her life with us. So this was a fun documentary. It will punch you in the heart in the last, in the heart, in the face, whatever. It'll tug at your heart and punch you in the face in the last half hour when it goes into her dealing with cancer. But I recommend it, and especially for anyone who is into comedy or going into comedy, you should know your elders. So definitely check this film out. For every movie there is about an up-and-coming comic, there better be people learning about the previous generation of comics. That's all I have to say. The next film I watched was I think it's the feature film debut of Craig William Macneill, and this is a film called Lizzie. It's by Bryce Cass, and it's about obviously Lizzie Borden, and it takes one theory that was in a book from the mid 80s. I think it was actually a novelization of her. It doesn't credit the novel, but it probably should have. The theory is that part of the reason Borden kills her stepmother and father is that she was caught having a lesbian affair with their housemaid. This has never been proven, and nor has the fact that Lizzie actually killed them been proven. You know, she was acquitted, and who knows, maybe she did it, maybe she didn't. I don't know. Um, but what the film basically tries to do is show you, and so it's not, there's not a lot of ambiguity about whose side this film is on. This film is on Lizzie's side. This film is on um, Bridget, the maid's side, played by Chloë Sevigny and Kristen Stewart, and it particularly wants to paint this as a household where everyone's walking on eggshells, where everyone is uncomfortable, where everyone is horrible, and heightened by the time and society in which Lizzie was alive. So you never don't know how to feel. That said, that's not always a bad thing in a film, and I felt so much for both of these women that it was okay that I was, you know, unable to feel other things. I really like Chloë Sevigny as an actress, and I love Kristen Stewart. I have always been a fan of hers, and I think they are very emotionally complex actresses. And so, but they are able to do it in a very almost stifled way, and so there's a lot under the surface, and you can see it in little moments and pieces and movements, but it's not overly theatrical. It's never campy, and I really dig that about them as performers. And so this film really highlights that talent that they have. My only the only part of the film that I didn't like was the score was very on the nose, like very horror film on the nose, and I could have gone for like a different feel with the score. I think that was the one mistake there. I did love that there's a whole bunch of shots of Lizzie from the back that very much make you feel like you're in an Antonioni film. Especially his films with oh my god, the blonde one. I just forgot her name. Shoot. Well, anyways, his films like La Ventura and Red Desert. Monica Vitti, there we go. His films with Monica Vitti, he often puts you in her perspective by filming her from the back as she's going places. And it makes you feel in her shoes. And there are several shots in this film as you're following Lizzie into various situations where it's framed and shot that way. And I really dug that. And I hope that was a nod to Antonioni. The other thing I really liked about this film was its structure. It starts, because you know that the audience wants to see the death, so it starts with the dead bodies, and then it flashes backwards, and you sort of see the last 6 months of this family, and from when the maid comes until the murders. And then you get the murder from one perspective, you get a trial, and then you get the murder from another perspective. And the way all of that is shot is so well done and well edited together that I always felt tense. I always felt the rising emotions, and you really needed to thread it together the way it did to get the rising emotions as they wanted it. The other thing I will say is the lesbian sex was not very male gazy, considering it was written by a man and directed by a man. I was very proud of them that they kept it kind of restrained, but it was still super hot because Stewart and Sevigny had great chemistry. And there is spoilers. She commits the first murder, completely naked as a way, I think, to not have blood anywhere, right? And it could have been shot really kind of gross, and it's really matter of fact, and they just are. And I feel like we need more nudity in that way, because it's not nudity for nudity's sake. It's nudity for plot's sake, but it's also not scintillating, titillating. It's not titillating. It's not um, objectifying. It just is. And sort of the way that in American Psycho, Christian Bale is just naked when he's like killing people with his chainsaw. Very similar sort of way of just being that I really enjoyed. So I liked this film. I don't think it's for everybody. It's definitely deliberately paced. I was into it, but it's not, it's not going to be a film for everyone. So this was Love, Gilda and Lizzie. I liked them both. I got a couple of Netflix films I'm going to try to watch tonight after dinner. Keep watching the movies. There are so many.